You see, people were putting pressure on us in Chigezi. You raised this matter before the president. And I was telling them, Kizza Besigye is not appearing before the president. He's appearing in the courts of law. And the only way he can get out of prison is through a court order. Yes, the law does not allow the president to pardon somebody on remand.
Interpretation.
They were beneficiaries of that court judgment because they had a prisoner who is remanded and who would immediately benefit from that. While, yes, the court order should have been pursued directly by Kabaziguruka's lawyers, but I don't think it was proper for them to go to bed and sleep when they know.
All that is also not true. Let me give information, and Lord Mayor will speak to it. They actually drafted this decree a long time ago, and it stayed on the Attorney General's desk for such a long time, and he was not signing it. So that's one of the problems. But also, the Supreme Court, the wording of their order was very clear that there was a word immediately. And once a decision of the Supreme Court is given, or any other court, it starts operating immediately. You do not even need to first extract this decree and all these semantics they are in.
And you see, this matter when it came to Parliament, I asked the government people, because the Attorney General told the Parliament that the court-martial has stopped immediately. I asked him, so this court-martial to hold the trials was moved by which decree?
Yeah.
Chris Barromus, you look bad.
No, maybe to you.
To anyone sensible.
No.
It doesn't have to be limited
Who
to
told
me.
you you are sensible?
I said to anyone
You say the
sensible.
problem for is you, Isaac.
You see,
you think you are sensible.
This
intelligent.
Chris Barromus
You say what
here,
you want to say.
when he was at Ginger Road here arrested.
Can we deal with the Besigye?
No, I am answering.
Yes.
And I didn't want to go back
to, by the way, to speak. What is your problem?
because it is very painful to him.
To who?
They were denied him even basic things like sandals, and they told him it is Museveni who has ordered. So that's why immediately after there, you went to see Museveni in Rwakitura. So you were in prison on Museveni's orders. You are now asking, Besigye is not there. We said Museveni.
So how is it related?
It is related.
How?
You see, the refusal to implement the Supreme Court decision is not a decision of cabinet. It's not his decision. It is a decision.
The Supreme Court has not been implemented.
What has been implemented?
I don't know what you're asking.
What decision of the Supreme Court has not been
You see,
implemented?
once the Supreme Court said, first annulled the sections of the EPDF Act that establish the General Court Martial, and the General Court Martial is no longer there. But that General Court Martial was the one that had remanded the Besigye. So the remand warrant expired.
That's not
You don't have to be a lawyer.
No.
So the marshal is there.
I think
it is there.
I think
So Besigye is Ruzira on which remand.
this mob action needs to stop. I think that first of all, the opposition people are trying to blackmail the government by whipping public sentiment on a serious legal matter. Guys, let us have one discussion. The Supreme Court rules.
Hold it. Hold it.
The Supreme Court's judgment. The Supreme Court's judgment was that the trial of civilians should not happen in the General Court Martial. It should happen.
Hold it. Nullification of the section that establishes the court martial.
Listen,
Hold it. We'll pull down
the decision.
We'll pull down
so
the
you can see
decision.
he's heckling. This is a
Yes,
problem.
please, allow one
You
person.
as authorized you to speak. You also have.
He is the one who has authorized me.
Honorable Ssemujju.
Yes.
Yes. Let's be fair. You jumped in. You jumped in.
Charles, we know the kind of people we are dealing with.
Andrew, go ahead.
So here is the issue. The Supreme Court's judgment was very clear. It said civilians should not be tried in the court martial. The case should be transferred to the High Court. It did not say that the charges against Besigye are illegitimate or illegal. It's not in the judgment. Therefore, what has to happen now is to transfer the case to the court. It did not say Besigye should be released. It did not imply that Besigye should be released. But let me guys tell you, you see for me, the opposition, as you can clearly see, and Besigye supporters, try to run from the substantive issues of this case and hide behind the emotions. One, if Besigye is in bad health, as a result of what Dr. Barromus has said, him going on hunger strike. If Besigye is trying to commit suicide, it is his right to do so, in my view. He can take his own life. But he cannot use hunger strike to blackmail government to release him. Besigye is arrested in a meeting where he was planning to overthrow the government violently, in which case thousands of Ugandans would have died. Two, in that same meeting,
that's an assumption, Andrew.
well, at least we all have the audios. And these audios, I told you last time I was here.
Supplied by your boss, Moses.
Those audios, I sent them to a friend of mine at Microsoft and two other friends at Apple, and they told me two things.
You got them as who, Andrew?
Well, as any person.
And it's where you have a
so
problem.
you see,
So you Mwenda, you got this audio as who.
So you realize the trick. He's running away.
Persecuting Besigye.
But can you stop interrupting so that we can have a debate?
Shocked that you say, I have the audio.
If Mwenda has the audio like this,
Honorable Ssemujju, please hold
can't
it.
you first
We'll
listen
have the
to
time to
others
speak.
so that we can have a civilized
Let one
debate?
person speak at a time.
Let us have a public debate.
You can only have a serious
You see,
debate
it does not matter how I got them.
So Mwenda, it does.
It does not matter how I got them. Who told
Honorable
me that?
Ssemujju, could you kindly respect the show?
But
Allow-
Ssemujju, can you stop disrupting? You will have your chance to speak.
Hold your time.
I am
Just asking a legitimate question. So you have videos as
Honorable
who?
Ssemujju, please allow members to contribute.
So you can clearly
to have
see.
your time to speak.
It does not matter. You see, this is the
And
issue I told them.
conclude your thought.
You see, in the case,
the abuse,
in the case,
the abuse of the state
But Charles,
authority,
can't you
Mwenda.
control this
One
person?
day you are in a government chopper, you are in a military uniform, they are picking children from the
Today
street
was,
that they are putting on a parade, and you don't see any problem with that, and then you want to civilize
Honorable
the debate.
Ssemujju, I am going to ask that.
Okay, so Besigye was
allow-
planning to murder Museveni.
You are in a government
Why-
chopper.
why-
So
why-
where are you going to murder in a government
Let
chopper?
me ask you this.
Are you a soldier?
Is Museveni,
Honorable Ssemujju, please hold
was
it.
Besigye in that meeting where he was planning to murder
Andrew,
Museveni in
Andrew,
cold blood?
let me
No, guys,
some
because
questions to
these
you.
people of the opposition are trying to whip up sentiment.
Hold it, Andrew.
Let me make the point. Besigye was in a meeting planning to kill Museveni in cold blood. Did he subject Museveni to due process? In fact, I think Museveni
Andrew,
is a very humane person. Why?
can I-
Because Museveni could have kidnapped or abducted him from Nairobi, killed him from there, and would never have been seen. If it was me trying to kill me, I have no...
Andrew.
Without following the due process, why should I follow
Andrew,
the process?
Andrew, hold it.
Hold a
Hold it.
second,
Hold
because
it.
he wants a shouting match, we can have a shouting match.
We can.
Yes, we can. So you want your man to kill Museveni, and Museveni should sit as
You
the
have
judge?
been abusing your authority, Mwenda. You are in a chopper. You are in military uniform. And then Museveni kidnaps children from
how
street
is that
and they are
related?
charged in
How
courts
is
of
that
law
related
that
to
they are
Besige's
putting on a
case?
beret.
How is that
We are talking
related to
about
Besige's
abuse of authority.
In
That's what you're talking
every
about.
case you come, you're always involved in the petty arguments like you are attacking him that he was arrested, when you were kidnapped. That's all that you do.
I am talking about
Your lack of
you.
intellectual
I
quality
am-
is not my
I am
problem.
talking about
What you need
you
to do,
in a
maybe
government
go back to
chopper,
school or to
in
your
a
mother
gov-
and
in a
be
government
educated.
uniform.
Or be educated,
You
are
are
part of those who are
coming
here and whipping up sentiment and sounding stupid doesn't make anything.
Honorable
You get it?
Ssemujju.
So where did you get? You
where
have
did
come
you
and
get
turned
it?
this debate into a shouting match.
That's
You
what
want a
you want.
shouting match? Then you can have
Go
it.
ahead.
Okay, and I'm very good at
Nobody has
it.
stopped
So
you.
I am going
So
to
you
tell
can
you,
shout.
a man Besigye was plotting to murder Museveni. Was he using due process in that process?
Andrew, can I-
Was he subjecting Museveni to a court when he discusses that he wants to shoot down his
Andrew, can I-
Museveni is a human being. Museveni has, if I were in Museveni's shoes, I would not even have that man alive.
Okay.
Because he does not believe in due process. There is a process of removing the government. He does not respect it.
So
there is a process.
which process
trying
did Museveni follow to remove the government? Which process
it
did he
doesn't
follow?
matter. Museveni succeeded.
does.
Treason is only treason when you
Which
don't
process
succeed.
did Museveni
Should
follow
you
when he
not?
was removing a government?
Best
here?
did not succeed. Best did not succeed. Therefore, he's subject to the law which he has violated. Museveni's greatness is that he succeeded. Best has failed. Listen, we're not going to give this man whatever try to run roughshod of everybody.
No, hold it.
We should. Why are you and Besigye not discussing the substantive case of what Besigye was plotting? Why are you saying, how did you get this evidence? Does it matter? Assuming I killed somebody and you stole the evidence or you bought it, does it matter how you got the evidence? The evidence is that the man was involved in a meeting to unleash violence on this country and kill the president of the country.
Can we put-
He was plotting cold-blooded murder.
Can we put some questions to
listen,
you,
there is
Andrew?
no
Hold
way
the moment.
Besigye can claim that somehow his rights have been violated when he was planning to violate the rights of others.
Thank you. You've made your argument. Andrew, can we put some questions to you?
Yes.
Under the presumption of innocence, all the arguments you've just made are supposed to be proved in a court of law.
Yes.
That process hasn't happened yet.
It is under
So you're making,
that process.
you are making conclusions.
That process.
Hold a moment. You're making conclusions on a matter that is before court, accusing Besigye of the many things you're accusing him of, without proof.
I have proof of audios of Besigye plotting murder.
No, you're not a court of law.
Exactly. But okay.
That's why we are saying.
Why are there prisons and why is there remand?
Listen.
Why is there? I want to ask you a question and you answer it. Every time somebody commits murder, they are remanded in court. I mean, they are remanded by court and they are taken to jail.
And right now,
does that mean that the presumption of innocence is taken away? But for me, even that is irrelevant because these people are being political. For me, the question is, when Besigye was brought in to kill Museveni, what due process was he getting?
Can I correct you? When Besigye was allegedly,
you think Museveni is not a human being?
Allegedly plotting to kill Museveni.
I cannot say allegedly.
Is suspected of having committed
I have
murder.
a confirmation of Besigye's voice. I am not. The court can follow its own process. I'm not here to argue as a judge. I'm here to argue as a person who got evidence of Besigye's voice in a meeting planning to kill Museveni in cold blood. You cannot say that's a very simple thing.
Let me ask
and let me tell you, Charles, just 1 second. I think Museveni, trust me, I will be killed in defense of you on this issue. I think you're a very nice human man. Because a man who was planning to kill you, you abduct him from Nairobi and bring him before competent courts. What would Idi Amin have done? Or any other person for that matter? Did the Americans take Bin Laden to a court of law? Besigye was planning terrorism. So he could even have been killed in that meeting. So for him to begin playing this stance of not eating in a prison and you coming here and making noise and defending a cold-blooded murderer, a person who was planning cold-blooded murder, I find it very demeaning and disgusting.
Let's listen, if you could, yes, Ofono Pondo, and then we'll bring in Council Elias Lukwago.
Well, I hope we shall have a calmer debate after that. But as you
I am so happy to shut the place.
As you please.
Yes, but you are defending a man who was trying to kill somebody.
We are telling you to follow this process. We are saying Besigye is brought from Kenya. You can use the word kidnap. Yes. I have used the word brought.
You're not going to.
We arrested him from Kenya. You can use the word you want. That's okay. You framed your narrative, and we allowed you, by some of our own mistakes, to run away with the narrative that Besigye is being hounded because, and the moderator here said, 4-time presidential candidate, as if that is a title. But that's also okay. No, you are using it to draw sympathy that this man is in the court not because of being suspected to be involved in criminal activity that Mwenda has alluded to. You want to invoke political sympathy that because he ran against Museveni 4 times. There are many other people who have run against Museveni. They are not in court. Now, Besigye's wife, who, by the way, I replaced as the movement secretary as director for information. I'm the one who replaced her. 2000. When she was sacked by Museveni.
How is that relevant?
No. Admitted that her husband, who had traveled to Kenya to attend a book launch, was lowered by his friends, some of whom were British citizens. This is what Winnie Byanyima said on record, on TVs in Kenya, and repeated them here. And therefore, lends credence to what Mwenda is alluding to. Because when he says her husband was lured away from the book launch by people he had not met much, and it is in that room that he saw a pistol on table and money in a box. So, that is from Winnie's own mouth. And therefore, we can put 1 + 1, maybe it will equal to 2, or equal to 3, or 4. And that's why, in the wisdom of the government of Uganda, they took him to the court-martial. Many people disputed. Some of us actually disagreed that probably shouldn't have been taken there, because in my word, I said on this show, that taking him to the court-martial will resurrect a political corpse. That's what I said on this show. You condemned me for using that word, and for that phrase I said a political corpse. Because politically, Besigye had died. Politically. I mean in terms of electability and so forth. Now that action of ours has kept him on the media for the last 3 months. Now, you have heard Councillor Kwago that he doesn't want to hear us. Who are you to say you don't want to hear us? If you really think you are powerful, come to this studio and we debate. But don't say you don't want to listen to us. For us, we are listening to you, even when we disagree.
What happened?
Now, you said
let
lawyers in any matter where lawyers are involved, there will always be two contending views. The Attorney General of Government said it was necessary to extract a decree which the prosecuting lawyers should have done. Now, you yourself, the lawyer, you have said here that it was not necessary. So how come the lawyers of Dr. Besigye extracted a decree, which in the first place, some of you are saying was not necessary? I watched Honorable Besigye on the floor of Parliament saying it was not necessary. So if it was not necessary, why did they go to extract it? If it is self-executing, did we expect that the prison authorities, from the ruling of the judgment of the Supreme Court, that the Shaja would open the gates for all of those civilians who had been sent there by the court-martial? I don't think that is logical. But since lawyers are contending, and one is saying, no, we have to transfer this. If there are lawyers who say, just because the Supreme Court had ruled so, therefore these people automatically should be out, then why are you wasting time going to court to seek his release? Why don't you just wait for the doors to open automatically? But we say in political philosophy, we say there's end of law and beginning of politics. You can talk about all your legal gymnastics, you can talk about the judiciary, you can talk about what. But it is the politics which directs the country, including directing the law. That's why it is Parliament which makes the law, not the law-making Parliament. And so, I think we need sober discussion on this matter. We need clear understanding where we want to go. But there are people who don't want that clear understanding because they think their narrative will take the day. Unfortunately for them, that narrative the Rukwagoza are pursuing will not win for them the day. Yesterday when they went to court, why did they go for the human rights issues? I think some of them, I wrote an article, I said this Besigye case has even given lawyers who nobody knew gravitas. They are now being hired. They are now experts, and so on and so forth. And they think they can run away, they can build. And to answer the question you set here, I think it is mostly politics. Particularly from our colleagues in the opposition, they think they are going to run with this and raise political capital from it. And we wish them well, including those who don't want to hear us. You are not going to determine whether we shall speak or not.
I can determine whether I should hear you or not.
Yeah. So you switch it. I listened to you. I don't know why today you are so jittery.
You've made your submission.
Yes.
We've listened to it. You have your time. Let's get back to Councillor Elias. We've been hearing the arguments in studio here. I'd like you to comment, to speak back to some of the issues that came up.
Whatever they have said, there are no arguments. You can only talk of rantings by Mwenda if they are a reflection of the mind of the state, and indeed that's the situation. Then the country is going to the dogs when their state. Actually, those rantings, which are a reflection of the mindset of the state, they make Amin and Obote look like a saints. If Mwenda can speak like that on camera, and then the kind of demeanor he has exuded, the outrageous allegations he's making, and the chest thumping, the anger, whatever you can talk about on camera, what happens behind the scenes there? If indeed Mwenda now I can confirm he's a state operative. If Mwenda got hold of Dr. Besigye right now, we can strangle him dead. That he wanted to kill Museveni. He's accusing him of murder. Do you know how many people Museveni killed when he was in Luwero? Do you know how many people have died under Museveni's hands? Do you know that Besigye lost his brother at the hands of General Kaguta Museveni? Musasizi, he died at the hands of General Kaguta Museveni. Do you know the people who have died at the hands? You know Mamenero, how he died at the hands of your good friend, the late Mayomba, and many others. Do you know how Kaira was killed and many others? And Mwenda is here saying, oh, Besigye, it's abhorrible, it's his word, he committed a heinous crime, oh boy, he doesn't even deserve any trial, any hearing, fair trial, fair hearing. Oh, Mwenda, please, do you own this country? He's speaking as if actually the state is Museveni, the state is Muhozi, the state is Kaguta family, and nothing else. Mwenda, does this country belong to you? Does this country belong to the Kaguta family? So you think there is no constitution in this country? Even if, yes, as you allege that Besigye wanted to kill Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, don't we have a law in place? Don't we have the constitution? Isn't it Mr. Museveni who wrote the current constitution? Doesn't it talk about fair trial? Does it provide anywhere for a situation where one can be deprived of their liberty illegally? That they can be detained without trial? You have a Supreme Court decision which clearly quashed all the proceedings before the General Court Martial. And you know there are no charges pending against Dr. Besigye. If indeed he committed the murder, as you are alleging, which charge has been preferred against, and in which court? Even in the General Court Martial, where Dr. Besigye was dragged shortly after his abduction from Nairobi on 16th November, he was never charged with attempted murder against General Kaguta Museveni. He was never. Nowhere has he been charged with any charge of murder, attempted murder, or anything of the kind. Now here Mwenda is on camera making such outrageous allegations against Dr. Besigye. Shame upon you. Shame upon you.
Hold a moment.
So why
hold it for a moment. Hold it for a moment. There is an argument that has been made that you lawyers for Dr. Besigye are skirting around the main issue, which are the issues that Andrew was talking about. Instead of allowing the due process of the law to go ahead, you are taking on other issues outside of the allegations that he faces. That by that process, you've delayed Kizza Besigye's justice for the last 3 months.
That argument, I don't even need to respond. It's neither here nor there. Because how have we delayed the due process? If anything, actually, for us, we have always demanded that Dr. Besigye be subjected to the due process. Tell me, since the 31st of January, when the Supreme Court came out with that landmark decision, who stopped the DPP from preferring charges against the Dr. Besigye? Why wasn't he taken to the civilian courts and charged with it? They have a whole division of the High Court, ICD, International Crimes Division. Who stopped them from doing so? If indeed he committed the offenses in Kenya, where he was abducted from, who stopped those elements in Kenya? Those elements who crossed from here to go to Kenya, or even if there were security operatives in Kenya, who stopped them from arraigning Dr. Besigye in the courts of law in Kenya? Was it Lukwago? Was it any other lawyer for Dr. Besigye who stopped them from arraigning Dr. Besigye with whatever charges they had against him in the courts of law in Kenya as the laws of Kenya provide? Isn't it a crime in Kenya to hold a gun illegally? Isn't it a crime to plot to kill somebody in Kenya? Wouldn't it be proper for them to charge him in Kenya and deport him? Or extradite him? Don't we have extradition laws? Please.
Thank you.
Let me tell you this. When Obote wanted to keep people without trial, to detain them without trial, he enacted the law. He came up with the legislation of Parliament, the Detention Without Trial Act. Why don't you, Mwenda, advise Museveni to also come up with similar legislation if he wants to have any cover of the law? The aggressive Ingiras were detained under that law, the Detention Without Trial Act. The Barachichirias, the who. So, tell me, if you are talking about the due process, he was talking about extraction of a decree. Do you want me to lecture you on constitutional matters? Please, a declaration on matters of just let me say this, Charles. Let me complete this.
Go ahead.
When you have constitutional declarations, they are self-executing. You don't need a decree to have anything declared by the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court on constitutional matters to be implemented, that you need a decree. They are self-executing. You mean on the 31st day of January, when the declarations were made, until the decree was extracted and signed on Monday this week, the General Court Martial remained in existence validly, legally? Why did it have to close shop before even the decree was extracted? You mean the constitutional provisions in the UPDF Act remained valid until the decree is executed? That is section 117. That subjected the civilians to martial law. That was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. You mean it is still valid until the decree is extracted? If you don't know anything, please don't expose your ignorance.
Let's bring the discussion back into studio.
He thinks that his man is clever.
And we have had a lot of time.
I was in a shouting match with someone who does not make my points. I really want to make my points that we cannot make.
And that takes away time. The shouting match takes away time. So
Yes, and you are the one who allowed it. If you don't want me to speak now, I don't mind going back home. I don't want to be
Andrew,
here if I cannot express my opinions. I cannot speak, you are unable to control him, so I want to make the points that I had on my phone that I wanted to make.
I was
What
unable to control
happening
him
the other
and
time
you,
is
both of
I
you,
was
so.
trying to shut him down because he was shutting me down and you were unable to shut him down. So we entered a shouting match where my points were not raised.
And we're still losing more time.
Yes, so
Yes,
can
we're
I
still losing more
please
time.
make my point that brought me here?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Let me come to the
Be
point.
mindful of the time of others.
Yes, I am not a lawyer. That does not mean I cannot understand the law or I cannot consult lawyers. It is not true that the Supreme Court annulled the sections of the court martial, annulled the sections of the court martial that try whatever. It simply
And now
said,
sections of the UPDF Act that set up the court martial.
yes, but what the Supreme Court did, it did not annul the trial or the charges against Besigye. It simply said Besigye should be tried, or for that matter, civilians should be tried in a civil court. So what is supposed to happen is to transfer Besigye from the court martial to the High Court. In other words, the ruling of the Supreme Court was very clear. It accepted the legitimacy of the charges, but said that the court martial is a subordinate court of civilian courts. That is one. The second thing that Lukwago does not understand is that Besigye was charged with treachery. What does treachery imply? If he had gone ahead and committed the murder, he would have been charged with murder. He was charged with treachery because he was in a foreign country planning to come and overthrow the government here and kill a head of state. So that charge of treachery it involves his plan to murder Museveni in cold blood. And we have audios actually of Besigye this meeting. Me, where I challenge the Rubongweas and other Ssemujjus and Besigye sympathizers, all of them have refused to discuss the substantive issues. They're always discussing his on hunger strike. They're always discussing his being. I want us beyond the technicalities of the law. What are the substantive charges that have been brought against this man in a court of law, which you can discuss in the court of public opinion today? Are they saying that Besigye was not in Nairobi? He did not attend that meeting, and in that meeting he did not discuss a violent armed insurrection against the state. Two, part of that plot to kill Museveni. We will play the audios. They will be subjected to tests. But these are accusations. You cannot say that simply because you are presumed to be innocent. It means the charges in a court of public opinion are dismissed. The courts will proclaim themselves on this issue. But you can discuss it now. Besigye does not respect the existing laws of Uganda. He has stated it in a series of interviews in Monitor, in Weekly Observer, on radio stations, that only a violent struggle can bring down this government. Two, in that meeting, he's discussing the killing Museveni. For me, I want to discuss it from a moral point of view. If I was Museveni, this dangerous dictator they're talking about. A man was planning to kill him in Nairobi. And Lukwago there is busy saying Kajira was killed, Museveni was in the war, he was killing people with Besigye, they were together in the same bed. I see Willie tweeting something and saying I'm being protected by Museveni does not protect me. But what I can say, when Museveni was committing those murders she's saying, when the Kajira was being killed, she was with Museveni, she was in bed with Museveni, both literally and metaphorically. Am I lying? What right does she have to say that I'm being protected by Museveni when she was with Museveni, when so many people are political prisoners here, and she, in the worst years of NRM, she was the one defending this system. This system today is much more civilized. Its legal processes have improved and improved over the years. So I think that Museveni today is has a more civilized government than in 1986 when she was in bed with him. So another thing we need to address is Besigye has never applied for bail. Why? Besigye has never denied these audio tapes. Besigye supporters have never come to say Besigye was not involved.
Besigye didn't take plea in the court martial.
But Besigye has access. He has access to many people.
Yes,
when he goes and visit him,
the court took the plea on his behalf.
Whenever people go visit him, let Besigye tell us. Even when he's in the court, he can speak to anybody and say these audios are circulating are false. Let him state so, and we hear.
Did he wait for the court process before he makes that?
No, but what I'm saying, if they are fake, why does he wait for it? Because we have two trials going on. There is a trial of public opinion, and there's a trial in the court of law. So there's a court of law and a court of public opinion. Yes. In the court of public opinion, I want to hear those Besigye supporters, like this David Lewison Vongoya and Ibrahim Ssemujju, let them tell us that these audios are fake.
Thank you. I'll go back to David Lewis. Yes. You two gentlemen started the shouting match. Hold a moment. Let's hear from David Lewis Mwenda, then we'll come to you.
Well, what I can say first of all is that it is extremely shameful to hear Andrew Mwenda speak the way he's speaking, and really reflects the abuse of the law, the disregard of the law. He's speaking as if it's a constitution. He's speaking as if, because this country has laws. And we want to follow those laws. And I want to associate myself with the words which lawyer Elias Lukwago said, the Lord Mayor, that if they wanted, if they say, and we're not in a court of law here, Andrew Mwenda, all of us are saying that if the state claims there are cases, there are offenses, legitimate offenses against Dr. Kizza Besigye, follow the law. First of all, there is a presumption of innocence. There should have been a proper procedure of returning him from Kenya to Uganda through the extradition process. You could have easily charged him before the civilian courts, and he himself said that he was okay being charged before civilian courts. What he was opposed to, and the Supreme Court agreed with, and the Supreme Court agreed with, is that he did not have any business in the military court. He did not have any business in the military court, and the Supreme Court made it clear that he had no business there. But these people are refusing. And I heard him say that, I think it is Malum Musi was saying that General Museveni is not the one holding him. But General Museveni has made his views clear. I even saw him the other day saying that, they are going to use every means possible to restore the General Court Martial and ensure that it tries civilians.
President Museveni wrote his views in a letter that he even spoke out. Hold it a moment. And he challenged and said, why not wait for the process? The thing that Andrew is asking for. Why not allow or call for a speedy trial?
And you see why he is very, very wrong in that. He was saying in his writing, for example, that Dr. Kizza Besigye should have asked for a quick trial. But we have NUP supporters who have been stuck before this General Court Martial for 4 years, not being tried. Instead, regime operatives have been approaching them to tell them to plead guilty to crimes they did not commit. So what General Museveni says that he should demand for a quick trial before, first of all, an illegal court, but also we know how that court has been operating, which the Supreme Court now said is a disciplinary committee of sorts. It does not try people. It has not been, it just persecutes people. People are taken there, and then what follows is regime operatives coming to tell our people to swear amnesty papers, to confirm that they committed offenses they did not commit, and all that kind of thing. So what Andrew Mwenda is saying is completely ridiculous. Dr. Kizza Besigye is entitled to a fair trial. What the Supreme Court said was that the General Court Martial was not a competent court to try civilians. What should have happened, therefore, is that all these civilians who are being tried by that court should have been set free, and if the state, in particular if the DPP, after their investigations by the CID, the DPP could have easily sanctioned those files. The DPP, I mean, the Supreme Court cannot amend the Constitution.
Mr. Wangwe, you're arguing a process.
Yeah.
Andrew posed the question and said, if you were President Museveni, you receive intelligence that somebody is plotting to assassinate you, how would you respond?
But what we need to know is that
You're arguing the legal process as it should be.
Yes.
But the accusations against Dr. Besigye.
But what I want to say is that this is not the first time. This is not,
hold it a moment. Affect an individual called Yoweri Museveni, who happens to be the president of the country.
Let me remind you that in 2018, General Museveni claimed that our President, Honorable Chagulanyi, was gathered with some people and threw stones at his vehicle, and the case collapsed. Let me remind you that the state assembled guns and put them there and told people that these guns were found in his in Honorable Chagulanyi's room, and the case collapsed there. Let me remind you that before then, Dr. Kizza Besigye was charged with rape. The state operatives were all over the place saying that they had a lot of evidence pinning Dr. Kizza Besigye in the rape charge. Why did it end? The same state, you remember, brought treason charges against Dr. Besigye. Where did it end? So it does not matter for us. What we are saying is follow the law. Everybody who is watching us knows how this state operates. What we are saying, let the due process be followed. There are laws in this country, and we are saying that once the Supreme Court said that the General Court Martial is not a competent court, what should have followed there and then is to immediately release all civilians who are under illegal detention. And
make your opinion, David.
I am
interpreting,
Andrew, please, we agree
because
that
we are talking about the Constitution. We are talking about the Constitution,
Please,
and I'm saying,
if he's aggrieved on how government is behaving, he can go to a constitutional court and seek a declaration of whether, when the Supreme Court said that these people should be transferred to the civil courts, should they be first released? That can only be interpreted in a court of law.
and I'm trying
You
to
cannot
explain
say
to
you are
you.
the final authority.
Andrew, aren't we running around the same contradictions? Kabazeguruka went to the Constitutional Court. It gave a decision. That decision was appealed in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court gave a decision, and that's what we are arguing.
And my question is, can the DPP, for example, sanction a file from the court martial who conducted those investigations? The Constitution is clear, and what we are saying is that the Supreme, not even the Supreme Court of this country, can amend the Constitution.
Yes.
So what we are saying is that the charges, if they are competent charges, there has to be a complainant.
Well, the Supreme Court wrong to say transfer is to...
And when the Supreme Court says transfer, it is simply telling you, now let these matters be handled by the civilian courts. And when they say that, it means that the process has to start afresh.
That's your opinion.
The process has to start afresh in the sense that there has to be a complainant, and the complainant, there has to be investigations. The DPP has to peruse these files and sanction them if the DPP feels that there are charges. And I was just drawing an inference as I conclude. I'm looking at the NUP supporters who are still stuck at Chitale now. There are no offenses. These have not been tried whatsoever. No evidence has been brought to pin them for 4 good years.
Thank you. You've made your point. You made your point. Let me have Ssemujju come in, and then I'll come to you for fun upon.
I hope you remember that I'm also around.
Yes. Please. Go ahead.
You see, and I am happy with this show. I didn't know that Besigye was facing the mob until today when I have seen the mob in its own scheme. Mwenda's friend, the main supervisor of the court martial, the CDF, every day sends the tweet, we are going to kill you. I identified a tree. And to Museveni, that is a quick trial, which Besigye is refusing. The trial, as you have seen Mwenda clearly say, Besigye is a murderer. His friend, I don't know the chairman of his party, he has not once, he has said, I have identified a tree, we are going to hang Besigye on Heroes Day, I have now brought the day forward. This is the guy who supervised the General Court Martial. And when Besigye and everybody else complained against the Court Martial, Museveni in his letter said, Besigye should be asking for a trial which he wanted to give him under the General Court Martial. If we have evidence, like Mwenda has claimed here, like Museveni and his family claim, why are they fearing to present that evidence in the courts of law? When the Supreme Court made a judgment, Charles, that that judgment annulling, actually nullifying the sections in the UPDF Act that established the General Court Martial, and the General Court Martial was no longer there, I have asked every single government lawyer to tell me under which regime was Besigye still be, under which regime did they continue holding Besigye because this thing happened under me. I told you the story the first day we were discussing that people were taken to Ruzira and they said the demand warrant will find you there. Because what stops this government that has all of this evidence in a video, in a film, on paper? What stopped them the following? The judgment was on Friday. What stopped them the following Monday to go to the appropriate court as ordered by the Supreme Court to take the charges and the evidence and then get Besigye and formally charge him? What stopped them? Now, instead, Museveni has called the NRM MPs tomorrow to go and change the UPDF Act to re-establish the court martial. Why do they want to charge people in the court martial? And the reason is very simple, because in the court martial there is no trial. You can go and ask Aaron Kiza what happened to him. The court martial complained against him, sentenced him, sent him to Ruzira, beat him. That's what they wanted to do to Besigye. In fact, I think Kenya must have been the one that stopped them from killing Besigye in Kenya. Maybe the intention was to kill him. Because if you have evidence, really, for this huge evidence of Andrew Mwenda, present it to court. Mwenda, you are not a judge. Mohozi is not a judge. Present this evidence before courts of law and get Besigye to be convicted. Because you have presented Besigye to every single court in Uganda, to the Supreme Court, to the High Court many times for rape, for treason, for misprision of treason, for everything. And once you're a government that keeps lying, even when you have something substantial, people will not believe you because you have been lying every day. You said you have evidence Besigye had raped a girl. You went through a whole trial. And court came to the same conclusion like Besigye's lawyers that you are dismissing today, that this matter could only have been cooked in the State House. That was the conclusion of court. What stops that same State House from cooking another evidence? Because if you are there, you have evidence. You are dying because you have present this evidence before a competent court. You don't go and try Besigye yourself and convict him and then announce when you will kill him. The point that the Honorable Yomus was talking about earlier, and I want to visit it, that all these matters is about Museveni, which Andrew has proved. I went to Masaka when the Honorable Besigye and Aran were arrested. They were accused of being behind the Bijambia in Masaka. Court released them. And Museveni said they cannot go home for the next 2 years until Besigye died.
When did Museveni say that?
He said it.
Where? When? Where? When? How?
Do you doubt that?
I'm asking you to present
He said
evidence.
it in the State House. Like in the matter of Honorable Akamba. He said, actually, I'm the one who ordered.
No, I'm asking.
You have asked when and said in the State House.
Yes.
That's when he said it. And he kept them in prison for 2 years, Besigye and Aran. And that's how Besigye left, deteriorated, and he came back and died. We hold Museveni responsible for the people
Who don't go to prison don't die?
Yeah, but there are those that you have killed. So when you kill them, we hold you responsible.
Thank you. Honorable Ssemujju, let me have the minister.
So they allowed me. I came with these 2 points. I need to make these 2 points because the first point is that once the decision of the Supreme Court was made, this government that has evidence should have gone to court to present the evidence and get Besigye charged before a competent court. That they didn't do. The same decision they took on stopping court martial from going ahead with trial because the Constitutional Court had said so. There is no lawyer who prompted them to go and stop the General Court martial.
The second point?
The second point is that you are dealing with liars who have taken Besigye to court more than 100 times. Besigye has been the most imprisoned human being on earth. They have never convicted him of any offense. Even as I speak to you, he was in court,
Yes.
being charged with inciting violence. I don't know how many times Besigye has been charged with inciting violence. I mean, why do I believe you today? If you have been a liar, every day you lie.
Thank you. You made your point. Let me have the minutes and then I'll come to Fonopondo.
You see, our friends are the ones who talk of rule of law. And the question sometimes we have posed is, yes, Dr. Kiza Besigye is a high-profile political leader. If he is suspected of committing a crime, what happens? Does it mean because you are a high-flying politician, if security and police thinks or suspects you have committed a crime, they should leave you because you have supporters, you have a lot of support in the country? The answer is no. You should be answerable like any one of us. Even me as a government minister, if I'm suspected of committing a crime, I am sure the authorities would want me to account for those crimes. So similarly, if the state has information and evidence that Dr. Besigye is involved in a crime, then he should be arraigned before the judicial process for him to clear himself. And that's why the president was saying, instead of making a lot of noise about pardoning him, forgiving him, releasing him, why are you not asking why was he arrested? And like Mwenda said, there is a plethora of information that clearly indicates that Dr. Besigye and the group were involved in subversion. For instance, I know they received $37 million to bring down the government. And Besigye, in his own handwriting, was writing saying, this is not enough because this government is sophisticated, we need more money. And for information,
Who was giving that money?
foreign authorities. And I can tell you,
Foreign authorities is a very general term, Honorable Minister.
Yes.
Yes.
And Winnie Byanyima is on record.
Is on
saying
record.
He was meeting people
Yes.
who were willing to fund
And
political
I
activity.
can tell you,
Legitimate political activity.
Yes, I do.
Well, I didn't hear the I didn't see the word legitimate.
Okay.
But even
I can tell you
Let's have the minister.
that actually some of the people whom they were working with are the ones who got concerned that why are you planning to kill the president to bring down the government? And they brought this information to state authorities. But we wait for court. That's why the president is saying, I had a meeting with him on Saturday and his concern was, why had the process delayed? Take Besigye to the civilian court, let the evidence be produced in the court for the whole world to see it. He can apply for bail in the court, but let the evidence come out. So I agree with the president. If Besigye is innocent, the courts will clear him. But if he is involved in subversion, then it will also come out. Now, nobody is against Kiza Besigye. Some of you claim to be close to him. Some of us come from the same area. We are neighbors. Some of us belong to the same profession. So you cannot claim you love him better than some of us. And nobody wishes him bad. But if the allegations which have been brought against him, then it is the court process. I did say that you are lawyers, and I want you to contradict what I'm saying, that even the president has no authority to order for release of a prisoner who is on remand. The law only empowers the president to pardon those who have been convicted. And the only way Dr. Kiza Besigye can get out of prison as of now is through a court order, either through the hearing which was made yesterday, if the judge orders him to get out, or if when he goes to the civilian court, he applies for bail and he gets out. But for you to say, you MPs, ministers, are not telling the president.
Dr. Mariamos, the bigger question people have been asking and the arguments that came out in court yesterday
Yes.
was that how or why is Dr. Besigye being held today where there is no order?
There were two arguments, and you know, luckily I'm not a lawyer, because in the legal profession it depends on arguments and opinions and so forth. Whereas for us in the medical profession, we look at facts and say, you have a wound, you have a wound. But in the law profession, it is opinions versus opinions. Like Lewis wants to give his opinion and he thinks it's an authority. There will be another opinion. And there were two differing opinions in court. Dr. Besigye's lawyers were saying he's being held illegally. The Attorney General Chambers was saying when the Supreme Court ruled that you take the cases to the civilian court, it acknowledged that there are charges and they were not dropped. It didn't say release the inmates. Court would have said so. And therefore, the mere fact that the court said stop the proceedings, transfer the cases. So the process of transfer also extended the
Can I supplement the
messages, please.
I'm afraid, Andrew, we need to make a
supplement the
make a pronouncement on that.
You see, Charles, the problem we're facing with the Lewis and the Ssemujju is for them now to make themselves a court. You see, we know the Supreme Court. I'm giving an opinion. I'm not making that mine is not an opinion. So there is a matter. We have completed this. Gentlemen, remember, interruption. You want to a Sudan match? I'm good for it. Yes. This is what I can state. The Supreme Court did not say the court-martial is illegal. It said civilians should be tried in civilian courts, and therefore this should be transferred. The case should be transferred from the military court-martial to a high court. Transfer of the case does not mean the case has been annulled. It means it must be transferred. Now, how is Besigye being held, given that the DPP has not preferred charges? You know,
the DPP has not preferred charges. The warrant that took him on remand expired.
Yes, but what happens right now, Besigye is held under the auspices of the Supreme Court ruling. To say whether it should be released or not, you can go to court and say, given that the Supreme Court ruled like this, how do we handle this matter? That is not a decision by David Lewis or Lukwago. It is a decision of the courts. The Constitutional Court can say no. When the Supreme Court said the case should be transferred, in the meantime, he can still be held on remand or he can be released. But none of us here, none of us can pronounce themselves with finality. That when the
yes, you are supplementing on the ministers.
Yes. So the Supreme Court was very clear. It upheld the charges. The Supreme Court upheld the charges against Besigye. Said the charges should be.
The Supreme Court did not uphold charges against Besigye. Upheld the charges against civilians who have been tried before the court.
Yes. So it said the charges should be transferred to a court. It means that the charges stay, but they're transferred to a competent court. During that period of transfer,
what happens?
Yes,
that's the question.
That is the legal lacuna that only the courts can pronounce themselves on.
At the risk of going personal, I dare say those three regime apologies previously first charges, individually, each of them have first criminal charges. For the Honorable Baryomunsi, in the case of Nebanda, that he had stolen body parts. For Andrew Mwenda, with the Charles Onyangovo, for allegedly publishing false news. And Ofono Pondo, murder. The thread in all those three cases, those people craved for fair trial, fair hearing. And it's the reason Mwenda went even to the Supreme Court with Onyango Obo.
You're being challenged.
His right to publish what
you're being challenged.
News.
You're being challenged. You're being challenged.
The Supreme Court,
hold a moment.
The Supreme Court.
Honorable Arias Lukwago, one for me is that you refer to these three gentlemen as regime apologists. I don't know what they should say in return as a description for other people they disagree with. But number two, hold it a moment. Hold it a moment. Number two, Ofono Pondo is challenging you to state the case file number where he was charged, or the decision of the court regarding what you allege was a charge of murder.
And in my case also, which charges were against me?
Well, it's on record. He has ever been accused of shooting somebody dead. That is a fact he cannot dispute. Whether there was a trial or not is a different matter.
What number?
Yes.
But the point is,
He's asking
they
what is
had
the
the
final
right to
case
be
number.
heard. Whether he appeared before police and explained himself, he was heard. For the case of Honorable Bariomusi, he was also heard. And for Andrew Mwenda, I've told you, he went a notch higher to seek for a Supreme Court declaration that publication of what Mr. Museveni or any other leader considers to be lies is a right. And indeed, it's on record that you have a right to publish what the state considers to be lies. What precludes Dr. Besigye from getting the same treatment that whatever accusations they have against him, he should have a right to be heard in a court of competent record, not a kangaroo court which was disbanded by the Supreme Court. So why hasn't he been arraigned before a court of competent record, a court of judicature? Tell me, who has stopped the state from doing so? That is number one. Two, the Constitution does not give them that latitude to drag their feet and do it at their own pace, that they are doing the mechanical transfer of files from point A to point B. The 48-hour rule. Go to Article 23. You have only 48 hours. Oh, you had only 48 hours following the decision of the Supreme Court to do whatever you needed to do to have any transfer done. Short of that, you are abrogating the Constitution. Three, any attempt you are doing right now at tinkering with the law to resuscitate the defunct General Court Martial must be done cautiously, well knowing that there is a principle made by the Supreme Court. Civilians cannot be subjected to martial law. That is the reason they annulled Section 117. So there cannot be any reincarnation of that provision in any shape or form. Whatever, you are going back tomorrow. You are going into the caucus. Money is going to change hands like it happened with the Tojukwata. With the age limit, with the term limits. I know they are going to be oiled. But it is not possible under the provisions of Article 92 for you to enact any legislation that has the effect of defeating the letter and spirit of the Supreme Court decision. That is not going to happen. Because the principle is very clear. Don't subject civilians to martial law. Finally, you cannot arrest people and purport that you are keeping them, that argument you were talking about, which is fallacious, that by ordering or directing that files either to pending before the General Court Martial be transferred to the civilian courts, that by extension the remand warrants were extended. That is a pedestrian argument which can only be made by amateurs like those three gentlemen, or people who are taking a maiden voyage in legal interpretation. The General Court Martial was quashed. The proceedings rather were quashed. And the Supreme Court said, all proceedings, all prosecutions must cease forthwith. That is the wording of the Supreme Court decision. They must cease. If you wanted to continue with any kind of prosecution, you cannot circumvent the provisions of Article 120. The general, like Lawrence Rubongo you observed, the general, yes, the DPP has no powers to sanction General Court files.
Council areas,
the DPP can only sanction charges prepared or preferred by the police. Right now, there is no police file against the Dr. Besigye. At least to our knowledge, there is nothing.
Yes.
There is no way now you can keep Dr. Besigye incarcerated without any charges in the courts of competent, jurisdiction.
Mr. Arias Lukwago, what did the Supreme Court mean when it said seize all trials, transfer those files? What is the meaning of that?
No. They said transfer charges or any complaint you have to the civilian courts. You see, they didn't say mechanically take a truck to Machinge General Court Martial, load all those files onto the truck and you pass via the DPP office and take them to the, I think that's the retro interpretation they want to give, take them to the civilian court. No. They said, please assemble, if you have any complaint against them, like Mr. Museveni is claiming through Mwenda, that Besigye wanted to kill him, let him go to police, record a statement, like you go to CID, let me advise you, you let Museveni go to CID, record the statement that Besigye wanted to kill him, then the file is assembled. But by the way, he cannot start that process here. He can only go to Kenya and start the process from there to extradite Besigye formally and bring him here. Because you can't even do it here when there was just illegal rendition. So, the transfer they talked about, please don't interpret it literally. They are saying if you have accusations against them, lay them properly before a competent court of record, not just to get the manual file, the one of Freeman Mugabe. That one was quashed. You can't get the one of Freeman Mugabe, and take it to the civilian court. But if you're talking about investigative files, ISO, CMI, you don't have investigative files, which you cannot take to the DPP. Read Article 120 of the Constitution. But the only point I want to conclude with, General Museveni and his son, they have said they want to kill Dr. Besigye. I want to assure Muhoz, I want to assure Mr. Museveni, you are not going to kill Dr. Besigye as you are now plotting to do.